Welcome back to another episode of the Transform Podcast, where we teach you about how to transform your health, your wealth, and your relationships. Today, in episode number 3, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to my friend, the one and only Andres Urdaneta. Andres, welcome.
Hi, how are you, Alex?
Good, and you, my brother. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. And I'd like to start by introducing you to the audience. Tell me about you and your company.
Perfect. Well, it is my pleasure to be here and share this time with you. My name is Andres Urdaneta. I'm a real estate advisor and investor. I've been in the business for the last almost 8 to 10 years, approximately. I'm originally from Venezuela. So I came to the US in 2010, and I was mostly seeking, for a safe and a better environment for my children. So we came here and established here in Miami, and we have been here since. Okay, I've been, my background is from the corporate world. I'm prolific in the business development, in marketing, and project management. I worked, for many years with companies that were producing food, for sale, massive consumptions. And since I've been here, the last 8 years, I dedicated some time to work in travel insurance. But at the same time, it started a little bit into real estate. And that's why today I'm working with Avanti Way Realty. They have around 14 branches in the state of Florida, and they had been awarded in 2022, being recognized as the third fastest growing company in South Florida. So it is an important company. They're run by fairly young people, but
That's
very
good.
technical and very knowledgeable in the real estate arena.
Perfect. Awesome, Andres. So you have to relocate to a brand new country, brand new language, brand new people. How was that for you? Was that difficult?
Well, it was a little hard because even though I went to school here in New York.
Oh, okay.
I went to school in New York, so it was my first encounter to the language and obviously the culture. But that was 30 plus years ago. Okay, so I graduated, went back to Venezuela, and all my interactions were in English, were in Spanish mostly. Okay,
Right.
and then probably the last 5 years before I came here in 2010, I was working with some advisors, from the US that were
Okay.
advising the company in some commercial projects for the company that I worked for, and they all spoke in English. So I started to recognize some of the words and using them in my daily
Right.
things, and that's how obviously it was a little bit of help in that sense. But when I came here and to Miami is very particular.
Yes, it is.
As you know, it's probably an extension. It's just an extension of South America, or Central
Yeah.
America. So it is Spanish everywhere. And so language-wise, it was easy.
Yeah.
But culturally wise, it was a little bit difficult, And Miami at the time, I always came to Miami, but it was on vacations with my parents. So it wasn't something, that I was like actually looking for living, because I always came for Disney,
Yeah.
just Disney and having fun. But hey, I realized that the city has been growing fast, beautiful. There's so many things to do, so many new, buildings, things to do, theaters and things like that. That hey, I came to love Miami, so I'm staying
Yeah,
here.
Miami's a beautiful spot, man. I could not agree with you more. But you
Yeah.
mentioned that your background was not real estate. So could you tell me about your journey and how you discovered your passion for real estate?
Well, yes, actually, while I was deciding to to make a decision on my career, my professional career. You know, I always been interested in architectural design, but also I've been, you know, like trying to repair or you know, repair things, you know, at home. So I was like, kind of like, hey, I like architecture, you know, I like, you know, constructing things and doing things, putting together things. But at that time, when I needed to make a decision, you know, on my career, it was a very kind of like a difficult moment for Venezuela, and economically talking about it, and socially, it was not probably the best moment. Even though years later it got worse, but at that point, there were not many constructions, there were not, you know, many projects, you know, going on. So I decided to, you know, move from architecture to business. So I came to the States and I made my major on business and in marketing. And I dedicated the last almost 30 years to it, you know, to doing business and marketing.
Very cool.
But then being here, at some point, I was working actually with a travel insurance. And I went to one of many conferences that you see, you know, promoted about real estate. And I went to one of them, and it was about real estate investing. And as soon as I came out of there, you know, I said, hey, it could be, you know, I don't know, something that I can do, maybe related to it. And it was mostly focused on doing flipping, you know, purchasing properties to rehab them, you know, repair, and then, you know, resell. And so I say, hey, maybe that's how I get into architecture or construction, you know, things like that, you know. And so I started to, you know, investigate a little bit about it, because I didn't know anything about it, very little, you know. So I got into that, and then, you know, somehow, you know, I started to do wholesaling, then flipping, and nowadays I do a little bit of everything, you know, in mostly in the residential side of real estate. But I've been doing a little bit of everything. And hey, I get to go to every single new building, you know, see it from you know, my very first eyes, you know, and you know, I don't know, experience every building tells a different story.
Right.
You know, it is great in that sense, you know. And obviously, this is a place where you can work with anybody. You know, it could be somebody, you know, that knows nothing about real estate, and somebody who knows a lot about real estate. And so, hey, it's been awesome. You know, you can learn every single day something about it.
Wow, man, that's a fascinating story. And I think I heard that you found it by chance. You went to a conference or people that were explaining it, and it just fell on your lap, right? That's how it started?
It just fell on my lap. Yeah.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
Yeah, and somehow, you know, there was another event probably, and it was that at the time a friend of mine here in Miami, you know, he said, hey, he was in real estate, okay, and he said to me, are you, you know, thinking about buying a home in the future? And I said to him, yes. Why don't you get your real estate license? You know, as tons of people have done it in the past, you know.
Yeah. I did it myself.
So I said, hey, why not? You know, so I get, you know, I probably get some money from the commission on the purchase that I be making, you know. And that's how I got my license originally. It was not because I meant to be working on that. It was not until I went to the conference, the real estate conference, that I really, you know, kind of like said, oh, this is something that I would like to pursue, you know?
You connected the dots.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Listen, usually when we're talking about real estate, one of the things that usually comes up is the misconceptions that people have. Could you tell me about some of the major misconceptions you have heard from your clients, and maybe something you would like to debunk?
Yes, of course. Actually, there are a few. I'm gonna try to maybe summarize them because some of them apply mostly when you're talking about a real estate investor,
Right.
which is a person who probably has. Well, it applies to them mostly, but it also applies to somebody who doesn't know much about real estate. But it is one of them is that. You are guaranteed when you invest in real estate, you are guaranteed an instant wealth. Okay, that you're going to be rich by investing in it
Overnight.
and in reality, it's not. It requires a lot of time, a lot of effort. You need to research very well the market, what kind of investment you want to do, and you have to be very careful about your decision making process. You have to consider that. You have to get well informed and then make the decision. Another of the misconceptions is that you need a lot of money in order to start something. And this applies not only for people who are already seasoned on real estate investing, but for new ones. You can start investing in real estate with as little as 3.5%. Okay, of
Wow.
payment. Which is great. If you're
Yes, it is.
planning to buy your first home, you can get loans for that amount. For 3.5% down payment. Or hey, there's so many things in investing where you can do crowdfunding, or you could do buy any interest in real estate. It could be bonds in real estate, could be just a home. You could do anything, and you don't need much money about it. What you do need is a very good credit. Very good credit, very good financials. That's what you need. You're not start making business in here if you cannot back up your financial information.
Yeah, you have to show that you're responsible, right?
That you are very responsible. So nobody's going to lend you money if you're not going to be responsible paying them back.
Yeah.
And so always you need to have that information, and that is one of the things that you always need to do. First is to analyze your financials and then work on it. And I would say on the side of everybody's, obviously the seasoned investors, they know more about it, and they already did the work. But for somebody who's just getting started in here, one of the misconceptions is that all realtors are the same.
That's a good one.
Which is everybody think, hey, you got your license, so you should be the same thing as the next one.
Yeah.
And it is incredible. Even for me, it is incredible that every single day you deal with different realtors, and there are a challenge by itself. Some, if you don't dedicate 100% to it, it is very difficult that you do well in this business, because there's a lot of details that you need to know. And one of the biggest things that you have to rely on is in your knowledge.
Yes.
If you're not knowledgeable about real estate, what things to consider when you're buying a home for the first time, or when you are advising a guy who knows it all on real estate because he's been in the business for many, many years, is the knowledge that about it, and the experience that you have had. There's so many details, and so not all of the realtors are the same. They're different expertise, different knowledge, different approaches. Some are very better at selling themselves than others, or making deals for you, because one of the other things is that you have to deal with a buyer and sellers, and you need to be good at it. How do you know you're making a good deal if you don't know how to negotiate? Okay. And when you're representing a buyer, how do you know they're making a good offer? if you are just one of the bunch. And so you need to be very good at negotiating too, and knowing what to do and what not to do in some cases.
No, that
So
makes
that
sense.
is, yeah.
That makes sense. That happens in my industry too. I think it's a valid point for almost every industry out there. There's always gonna be doctors, but who's the best doctor, right? There's gonna
Correct.
be bankers, but who's the best banker? Who's the person that's gonna have your back? So this statement that you made is the perfect segue for my next question.
Mm-hmm.
You shared a bunch, but could you share even more specific and valuable tips for the listeners who are interested in starting the process of maybe buying their first home?
Yeah, of course. Well, in for the first time home buyers, like I said before, one of the very first ones is to assess your financial readiness. You know, you need to know before buying a home, how are your financials?
Yeah.
You need to know how's your credit score, how you know what budget do you have to buy a home, how can you, if you have a down payment, how much money do you actually have? You know, because even though there are loans that are only require 3.5% down payment, you need to have it,
Yeah.
and it's not the only cost that you have, because you have closing costs. And then obviously one thing is, oh, I purchased the home, but hey, can I keep up with all the expenses
Yes.
that require the maintenance of the property, or the taxes, or repairs and things like that? You need to know a lot about it. So the first tip is you need to know your financials, and and what kind of situation are you getting involved to, in terms of the costs that are involved or the expenses that are involved.
Very true.
Yeah. The other thing is that you need to, in order to purchase your first home, one very good thing that you need to do is to get pre-approved for a mortgage.
What does that
Sometimes,
mean? What does that mean? Because a lot of the listeners might not know what that means.
okay, in this case, if you're not, you got basically two big ways of purchasing a property. One is to pay cash for it. Okay. So in that case, you don't need approval from anybody, just to have the money available in order to make the purchase. But then on the other side, if you need to finance the purchase, then you need to get pre-approved by a reputable lender. And why do I say this? Because if you start looking for homes and not knowing what value of a home actually you can pay and you can get finance for, then we're wasting time. In this case, it is very important that you know exactly for what amount can you get approved by the lender. Okay. And to do so, by doing so, you also know sometimes you are not able to buy the home. Yeah. Because they will not approve you the loan. But you get to know how are your financials and then work on it. For example, if you have bad credit, a good lender could tell you, hey, you need to focus on reducing your debt on your credit cards, or paying your car before applying for a mortgage, those kind of things. So it is very important to have that conversation. And for us, that we are, at the end of the day, are the ones who are going to be looking for the property, it is very important to know how much can you afford, because it is different to look for a property that is worth $500,000 than another that is 300, which is what you can afford.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get your hopes on a 500 when you can only purchase a 300.
Perfect.
And so that is very important to get pre-approved.
So it sounds like the pre-approval is what borrowers would need to get from their bank or, lender of choice in order
Correct.
to know this is the maximum I could extend myself to, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Beautiful.
And obviously, if you rely on good lenders, reputable lenders like yourself, you're in the banking business. And so you're in a very good position in order to advise those people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
In order to say, hey, you need to work on your credit, or you need to work on, I don't know, something else, or you need to have more time working. Like they usually ask for 2 years of income proof, that you've been working for those 2 years, all the time. And that is important. And you can only get that from somebody who knows about it.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to have, somebody just searching for homes and not knowing exactly where they stand today.
Yeah.
And I would say, just to mention another one is that for some people, obviously in the US, and Florida is not an exception of it. Everything is in English, it's not in Spanish, even though here in Miami, we speak a lot of Spanish everywhere, okay? But all the contracts, everything that you see, it is in English. It's not in Spanish.
Very true.
And so for many people who are not knowledgeable in the English language, it is very important to them to get somebody who can advise them, either is an attorney or somebody with legal abilities to explain to them in detail what the contracts are, so they know and they get into that and they know what the risk, advantages, or disclosures are in any of the contracts that are available. So that is something that is very important to get to know from the beginning. And that's why you also need to have a realtor, even though a realtor cannot give you legal advice, but they know what are in the contracts.
Yeah, they've done it. They've done it over and over again. So although they're not a lawyer, they understand the process.
We understand the process.
Yeah.
And so if you know the process, you are in a very good position in order to, tell them what to do, what not to do, or where to seek the advice that they need.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Andres, you speak a lot of advice, and clearly you've dealt with many, many clients in the past. Could you share with me any inspiring story that, related to obviously real estate, your profession, that you have had, which has had an impact, a lasting impact on you?
Okay. Well, in this case, it's kind of like I have many stories with some clients, but in this case, I have one in particular that is my personal story. And it's actually my first deal. When I made my first purchase in real estate, besides from my home, I used to have my home in Venezuela. Then I moved here. I've been renting for many years, but I decided to invest in real estate. So as soon as while I was doing the conference, attending the conference in real estate, that was back in 2014, around 2014. At that time, obviously, we were getting a lot of information about how to invest, where to invest, the type of properties, the challenges that were related to buying one type of property versus another, those kind of things, And in one of the conference, there was a vendor that was approved by that was approved by the conference people that were doing the conference. But at the same time, they did not give you a lot of information. Nonetheless, they were doing turnkey properties, which means that they will sell you a property that it is free and clear for you to purchase, they already have a tenant in place. The property has been rehabbed in the past, and so they put a new tenant in.
Yeah.
And they have a property management company in place too, in order to manage the property for you to, say that is hassle-free purchase,
Yeah,
or
right.
manage-free, hassle-free, manage-free purchase,
I
which
need one of those.
oh man, which we was, and it was a total disaster, in terms of the things that you think they're gonna work and they didn't work.
Right.
Okay. And so, I was just in a conference about real estate. Okay. And so I didn't know much about, hey, property management, how to deal with a tenant. It was my first tenant. How to do it, because this property was a house in Buffalo, New York.
Wow.
Okay. And I was here in Miami.
Long-term rentals,
Long-term
nonetheless.
rental. Yeah. But it was crazy because I never saw the property. I only saw some pictures of the property. Okay. I was not going to go to see the property and then buy it. I needed to make a decision right at the conference. Okay. With a vendor in front of me. And so I needed to make a decision. So I didn't know nothing about property management, dealing with the tenants, dealing with the repairs, how to do the repairs remotely, or hire somebody that you don't know remotely in order to do the work. The house was under one of the government programs, which is called Section 8, which is for people who doesn't have enough income in order to pay for the rent.
Yeah.
So it was under the Section 8 program, which is a very good program, but it stays some challenges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Because you have to do some inspections with their own inspectors, and it's kind of certain kind of people that you can rent it to. Those kind of things, So it was a very big challenge to get to know it. But not only that, is that they said to us when I purchased the property, hey, this is a home, this is what you're gonna get, and this property, you're gonna pay $50,000 for the property, okay? Because it was $50,000, and you're gonna be making money within the next 5 years. And so we said, hey, okay. But one thing that I needed to tell you, which is very important in my way of doing things, I'm a very numbers-oriented person.
Okay,
I'm very
good.
detailed. I'm very detailed on things. So many times, I don't take the decision on time because I'm, there's a saying that says paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
That happens to me many times. Okay. And in this case, it was kind of like an impulse. Hey, I need to make my first investment.
Wow.
So I didn't analyze much about it. Okay. Later on, like I said, I found all these challenges, but on top of that, the house was worth, at the moment I purchased it, really, by looking at comparables, other sales that were in the area, it was worth around $30,000.
Oh man.
So you can imagine buying a home and saying, oh, if I need to sell this home tomorrow, I'm only gonna get $30,000 on this home.
Wow.
Not the $50,000 that I'm paying for it. Okay. So it was a very big challenge. I sold it 3 years later. I got some money from the rent. I never got any money for the sale. Actually, I sold it on 35,000, and it was the highest price I could get. So I lost $15,000 on the sale. Okay, right there. But it was very, very important to me, that experience. Okay, and I learned a lot from it. And then I started to do other transactions, obviously in the future, but I was making sure to know exactly what I needed to know about the market, about the condition of the property, about how to handle, tenants and how to do repairs if I needed to do some of them remotely, or some things like, for example, I did some wholesaling, and wholesaling is just buying and reselling the property without doing anything to it.
Right.
And so I got into more wholesaling after that deal. Because I
Interesting.
said, hey, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to deal with, with tenants. I just want to buy and resell. And that business was a lot better at that time than having my first rental property.
Makes sense. So the inspiration of this story, the way I hear it, is that the learning that the mistake of, rushing into this transaction brought you ended up being more valuable than actually getting a successful first rental, because you learn how to deal with the management piece, you learn how to deal with long distance, becoming a landlord at a long distance, and then you got into a whole new business, which was wholesaling, right?
Which was wholesaling. Yeah, correct.
Wow. Amazing, man. Amazing.
No, it is crazy, but I never go into a deal knowing it all. Never. There's always something new to learn about it,
And the one time you did, it didn't pay off.
It didn't. But hey, it paid off on knowledge,
Yeah. You live and you learn. That's true.
And another thing is, obviously, you're always going to try to make the best decision for yourself. And mostly if you are considering to buy a home for your family and yourself, than investing. Because when you are on the side of just as an investor, okay, and any investor that has been in the business for a few years will know that not all the deals are going to be good.
Yeah.
You're going to lose some money in some of them, and they're going to make money in others. At the end of the day, your experience, your knowledge is going to help you to make it, profitable.
Yeah, long term.
Not in every single deal that you do.
No, that makes sense. So that brings me, there's definitely a lot of psychology in this process of buying a home, dealing with all these issues. So could you tell me what were some of the resources, maybe books, influential figures that influence not only your expertise, but your mindset, in this business of real estate?
Well, one of the things that I usually do is to keep learning, obviously, CM always keep learning different things, reading different things, or just listening. Nowadays is huge what you can find in podcasts, many of them about real estate, about news on real estate. And usually, because I'm in the car many hours of the day, usually traveling from one property to another, or getting a client or things like that, I always have podcasts, in my car, and listening to the news and, weekly news and things like that, So there's many of them, and most of them are very good, all of them, And on the other side, probably the first books that I read, it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, that's a good one.
From Robert Kiyosaki. And I read another one that was The Millionaire Real Estate Investor by Gary Keller. But then, like I said, I listened to like success stories. Probably, for example, there's one that is not necessarily in real estate, but it is related to real estate because of the long-term investing, which is like Warren Buffett, for example. He does mostly stocks, okay? But he believes on long-term.
Yeah, buy and hold.
Buy and hold. And real estate is buy and hold for the most part. Another one that I usually follow is Barbara Corcoran. And the good thing, in her is not just about real estate. It is about, how to market the properties, the things that you need to know, the skills that you need to have in order to sell or to buy. Be good at where you're good at, those kind of things. So it is very, market oriented, but it's very to, related to what you know and what you can do best. So that is a good source of information and and knowledge.
Awesome, man. I really, really
Mhm.
like those.
Mhm.
Déjame parar aquí y coger las preguntas que se me fue con
Okay.
todo. Ya estamos terminando.
Sí, sí.
Está quedando buenísimo esto. ¿Qué te parece? ¿Qué te ha
No, está
parecido?
chévere, está
Sí,
chévere.
súper chévere, ¿verdad?
Sí. Pero que hay que hacer uno cuando la entrevista es para ti.
Sí.
Porque en este caso uno habla de lo que hace uno, pues no de lo que haces tú, pues.
No, lo bueno de esto es que solo por el hecho de entrevistar ya te trae,
Ujú.
aunque tú no lo creas, te trae gente.
No, obvio.
Le estás trayendo material enfrente de ellos que ellos andan buscando, ¿eh?
Correcto.
Okay, Andres. So that brings me to the next question. How do, throughout, all of these things, learning the new field, facing the challenges, obviously you had resources like you mentioned before, but how do you stay motivated and continue to innovate in real estate despite the challenges, right? Right
Mhm.
now we're going through a difficult time in the economy. So how do you stay motivated and innovate through all these moments?
Mhm. Well, in this case, one of the things that I don't stop doing is learning. That's one thing, because uh, sometimes we feel like we know enough at some point, but then the market changes
Yeah.
or the conditions change, and the economy goes bad or the economy goes good, but then you think you know enough. And in real estate, you need to know when to apply different strategies depending on what the market tells you.
Yes.
Okay. And so constant learning, it is very important. But another one will be adapting to it. Sometimes, you have to stop selling or stop buying and renting more, or buying more in the case of income properties, or just doing wholesaling, depending, but you need to adapt. Okay. And you need to adapt your speech, because sometimes you are more towards working with investors, and that's a whole different thing, a way of talking to them than to talk to a first-time home buyer.
Absolutely.
And above everything else, keep a positive thinking.
Hmm.
It's like, hey, yeah, the economy is bad, but we need to find ways to, manage on that situation. Or, or you have trouble in your personal life. Well, you have to manage both, but keep a positive thinking in everything. That is very important.
Wow, that's a powerful message, man. So staying positive, first of all, and staying adaptable, being willing to adjust and assess the situation and find a path
Mm-hmm.
forward. So that's very, very good, man. Thank you for
Correct.
sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our listeners, right, in the podcast, they are looking to transform their lives. And
Mm-hmm.
they do that by transforming their wealth, their health, and relationships. In your words, right? How could they transform their wealth through real estate?
Well, uh, some of the things will have to do with wealth. Some may have to do more with stability and security. For example, if you're buying your first home and you need a place for your family, it is probably not wealth, but is stability and security for your family.
Hmm.
Okay. Or it is sometimes it's just to have the sense of pride or accomplishment,
Yeah,
because buying a home, it is kind of like the big deal,
it is. It is.
in the things that you usually do. Even if you're single, okay, it is a big deal. It's not like buying a car. It is very simple to buy a car than to buy a home,
Hmm.
okay? And the commitment behind it is totally different too. And in sometimes, some people, just by purchasing a property, they also get a stronger connection with their community. because it is very important. Some people, when you buy something, you feel more committed, and because you are committed to the property, you're committed to the community at the same time. So those things you cannot measure probably in wealth, but on the other hand,
relationships.
they measure in relationships.
Yeah.
They can bring you new business. They can bring you, new friendships. They could bring you, I don't know, more awareness of things to do. Okay. And so in terms of the wealth, obviously, investing in real estate is always going to be there. Homes are going to be needed. Always, they're going to be needed.
Very true.
Somehow, either you need to rent or you need to live in a house or in a home, you need them. So it's something that is there and it's going to be there.
Yeah, it's the American dream, right?
Well, yeah, it is the American dream, and so you just have to manage how to get there, and buy more of it. Obviously, there are other options that you can get wealth, investing in stocks or doing, whichever. Okay, but real estate probably gives you one very good investment and a lot of security, and stability.
Very true.
And for some people also, even though buying or investing in real estate can also lead to revitalizing neighborhoods.
Very true.
Because sometimes when you start doing, a fix and flip in a home, in an area that is probably not very good, then another one starts, and another one, and another one, and another one, and then soon you get a neighborhood that used to be very bad, converting into a very good one, and so that brings more
value to the community.
Okay, and at the same time, as if you plan to invest in real estate, you can also help vulnerable people that need the needs of a home.
Yeah.
How many homeless do we see here in Miami?
Oh, many, man, many. Unfortunately, many.
Unfortunately, and yeah, some of these, this way is, investing in real estate can give you money to help others too.
Wow. No, you had a great perspective. I have never heard from anybody before that perspective that you mentioned, that it's that domino effect, that one home could change an entire community. And that's so powerful that you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does. And it has happened in many, many, many areas in Miami, in the past. Some more faster than others, but eventually all of them get there.
Andres, that this is a personal development podcast, right? We combine it with business, but the main idea of this podcast is personal development. So could you share with me maybe one quote or one piece of advice that has been given to you that helped you improve your life?
Wow.
This one's deep. And this is great advice for the audience. So take your time.
Well, actually, it is probably one that, many people have used in the past, and it will sound, I don't know, a little bit cheesy.
It's all right.
But to me, it's like never give up. To me, it's very, very important. I faced some challenges, very difficult ones, economically speaking, or personally. And there's only one thing, keep in mind your goals, a constant work, learning, and then you're going to get there. Never give up. I would say that is something that is always guiding me.
No, and that's, sometimes the most common sense advice is the hardest to understand, because that's the truth. At the end of the day, if you do not give up, how could you lose? You keep at it. If you keep at it, you might not do it. You might not reach your goal today or tomorrow or next month or next year. But if you keep at it, over time, you will make it. So not the resiliency, not ever giving up. That's a very strong message.
That is correct. There will always be challenges.
Always for everybody.
Always. So, hey, keep keep it going. It has been the best, thing to do.
Awesome, man. So
Mhm.
listen, I thank you for being my third guest here on the podcast. I hope you had a phenomenal time. I'm really appreciative of you being here with me. I had a phenomenal time. Tell me, what did you think?
No, it was amazing. Actually, I follow your post, in LinkedIn. There are two things very good about it. One is that they are not too long, but they are, very
To the point,
concise. They're very
concise,
to the point. They're
but
very
but
concise.
it's really good and strategic information, right?
Yeah, correct. And so, I always tell you, and every time we meet, I always
Awesome.
tell other people, I start, talking about your post, so it's
Awesome,
been,
brother.
it's been good to have it, and
It's And honestly, it's exactly what we're trying to do here with the podcast. We're just trying to bring common sense and simple, easy to digest information to the listeners. That's why it's important to have, guests like you that come out and just speak in terms that people could understand. A lot of the stuff that happens coming from a financial industry background, what I've noticed is that we specialize things too much. Why? Because then you need the specialist. But the purpose of the Transform podcast is to bring, common sense information that's accessible for everybody.
No, sounds good.
So
And
I really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And for all of you out there, thank you so much for coming out here to listen to us. Continue transforming your life. See you next time.
perfect.